All right, a quick disclaimer before we get started. Fundamentally, I'm not an accountant, I am not a lawyer, I am not a veterinarian. If you need advice from any of those three service professionals, please invest in some quality advice, because none of the videos in this course will in any way be a substitute for anything that you should actually be asking any of those actual professionals. Before we get started, I think that we really need to talk about integrity. I think that the basis of every business should be doing things properly, doing things right. There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And, you know, it's like building a house on sand. You can do it. It's probably not going to last all that well, and you're constantly going to be having to fix it because it's going to be moving around. Or you can build it on bedrock and you can do it properly. It might take you a little bit longer, and it might cost you a little bit more initially, for example. But I think that that's the way that business works best. Business owners should be people of integrity, people that do the right thing, people that treat their clients like their friends or family. And this is just my opinion, but I believe it is the law that we must pay our taxes, and we should not be hiding our, income from the government so that we don't have to pay taxes on certain things. I think that what goes around comes around, and it is really important to get started off on the right foot. So are you an entrepreneur or are you an employee? Obviously, that's a very loaded question. So let's get into some of the positives and negatives to being an entrepreneur, as well as the positives and negatives to being an employee. Okay, so the positives to being an entrepreneur. Fundamentally, you get to do what you love. Like, I really love working with dogs. I love helping dog trainers with their businesses. It's just something that I really enjoy. I wake up every morning and I just can't wait to get out of bed, take my dogs out for a walk, brew some coffee, and get into the day. I just love doing what I do. And I think that that's something that most people are really drawn to as far as starting their own businesses, so that they can kind of figure out their own lifestyle and be able to do something that they're passionate about. If you have a really good month as an entrepreneur and you make a lot of money, or your business really progresses, or you get some sort of a really cool, an award or something like that, there's a lot of really good things that can potentially happen if things go right in your business. And, that's all on you. If you have a month where you make $20,000 or $30,000 and most of that is actually profit, and you can take that money home, that's pretty cool. If you're an employee, you're probably not going to be able to take that extra money home. You might get a little extra bonus, but if there's an extra $15,000 on the table at the end of the month, typically the person who owns the business is going to get that money. So just being able to really reap everything that you've sown if things go correctly is a huge positive to being a business owner. Really, being a business owner, there is no cap on what you can achieve as far as actually building your business to something. You can keep it a small home-based business. You can build it into this large facility. You can do franchising, and there's no real cap on how much money you can make. Basically, if you want to make several millions of dollars, you can do that as a dog trainer. You can do that as an entrepreneur. There's no real cap on it. Whereas sometimes if you are working for somebody, there's not as much of a cap. You might get a raise every few years, but typically you're not going to get into making millions of dollars by working for somebody, especially if you're a dog trainer. You can make your own schedule. That's pretty awesome. I love the fact that if I want to, I can just book some time off and I can take my family on a trip. I can just decide that next week, if I don't want to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I don't really have to. So I love the flexibility in my schedule. It's pretty cool that I get to choose the people that I work with, not only with the clients, but if I'm going to have staff and different things, I get to choose those people, even the vendors that I use, the people that do my graphic design for me or might help me out with photography. I get to choose all of those different things because I'm the business owner at the end of the day, and I get to choose who I surround myself with. I really appreciate that because I like being around like-minded people that are passionate and are good people. being able to actually choose the methods and tools that I want to be able to train the dogs that I'm working with is awesome. I love the fact that if I'm working with one dog that normally I would train a certain way, I don't have any type of a system and procedures. I don't have any kind of a protocol that I have to follow. I can just change up the tool. I can change up the method that I'm going to use. I don't have to worry about somebody being over my shoulder saying, no, this is the way we train every dog with this specific method or this specific tool. Having that versatility is really, really important to me, and I think really for all dog trainers. It's stressful. There's stuff that happens, things go wrong, and you're the one who has to put out the fires. You have to figure out those things at the end of the day. Anybody who's an entrepreneur who tells you there's no stress involved, they're lying to you. There is stress. There's going to be stress if you're working for somebody, or if you are an entrepreneur and you own your own business. There's no way around it. Your life will be stressful. And depending on how you actually set up your lifestyle and what type of business and industry you're in, some businesses are a little bit more stressful than others. What if things don't work out? What if you start this business and things just don't work out? You spend too much money on it and you can't pay back your loans, or something happens and you make a really bad mistake and something happens to one of your clients' dogs. At the end of the day, everything is on you. If things are not exactly the way that they should be and working really seamlessly, then honestly, at the end of the day, you're the only one to blame. The vast majority of business owners I know, they work way more than the other people that I know that don't have their own businesses. Typically, entrepreneurs work a lot more. And, oftentimes we'll say things like, oh, well, it's not really work if you love what you're doing. I understand that. I love what I do, but there's definitely a lot of weeks when I'm starting new projects, or I'm doing new video courses, or I have trainers coming in to do a shadow program or business coaching where I'm working 70 hours a week, sometimes 80 hours a week. At the end of the day, if you own the business, you're responsible to make sure everything gets done. So we'll talk a little bit about this in the coming segments and the coming videos, but depending on how you structure your business legally, some of those business entities can actually be pretty open to liability. So this can be a really big negative if you don't structure your business properly, if you don't have the right type of documentation and contracts, if you don't have the right type of insurance, if your business is not actually legally set up the right way, you can potentially get yourself in a lot of trouble if something happens and somebody wants to come after you for money. They can go directly to you for that. Now, there are a lot of business entities that will not really allow this, where they can only really try to sue the company and they can't take your own personal things, but we'll get into that in the future. But of course, there's typically a lot more liability if you are the business owner. Typically, if somebody is unhappy or something happened that shouldn't have happened, typically if somebody's mad, they're not going to go after the employee, they're going to go after the employer, which would be you. Okay, this is something that oftentimes never gets talked about, but it is really, really important. I think one of the biggest negatives to being an entrepreneur is the fact that you don't have somebody managing you. Now, I like the fact that I get to make my own shots. I like to be able to, decide if I want to take a lot of my profit and put it into something different and, maybe start a new business or, start a new project. I can do that. I like having that ability and that flexibility. But at the end of the day, I still struggle after 14 years with making sure that I'm really, really productive and not just being busy. We can get caught up in emails and phone calls and all these different things, and sometimes our day is completely shot and we barely got anything done. I love feeling productive, and I feel sometimes like if I had somebody watching over me, if there was a camera in the wall that was connected to somebody who was cutting my paycheck at the end of the month. If I really thought about it, sometimes, I got a little bit sidetracked on the email, or maybe I was supposed to be like banging things out on the computer, and I started checking Facebook and I lost track of time. I'm getting a lot better as the years go on, but sometimes it's actually a detriment to not have somebody looking over your shoulder and really keeping you accountable.